All right, I'm gonna do some dumbbell row on an incline just to warm up and get that body going in a different angle, okay? Because when you're laying down, you got a different angle than when you're standing up and bending over and doing the arch back thing. So yeah, let's do this.
So welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding, and you can see I'm going to show you a little bit of a back workout, and I'll do a little bit of biceps here as I talk about the subject of the day, okay? I'm going to talk to you about a subject today because somebody just asked me in the comments, they asked me, is there such thing as overtraining? And I'm going to say yes. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that say overtraining doesn't exist, you're just under eating or under sleeping or under something. But the problem is overtraining does exist. It's just that the parameters will change depending on circumstance and person. That's really the big thing. So one person might be able to recover better than another person, and you just got to figure out which person you are and what you respond best to. So the first thing you have to ask yourself, is your training program working? That's the first thing. First, ask yourself that question.
Biggest challenge is to keep the bench from rolling on me or sliding, so gotta work around that somehow.
The second thing you have to understand is that there are certain time constraints and abilities that the body has, okay? So basically it has the ability to transport blood to a certain area, a certain amount of blood volume over a certain amount of time, which means there'll be a certain amount of nutrients over a certain amount of time able to go to a certain area. Based on this, you will only be able to recover from so much damage, okay? So how much damage is enough?
So I find this movement works a lot of the upper trap, works a lot of the rear delt, because you are right bent over and you're not able to bring the lat in as much, okay? Because the lat is more about bringing the elbow to the waist, but because I'm bringing the arms just straight up, you're hitting a little bit of a different part of the back, more of the upper back I find.
So there's this fantasy where a lot of people that are naive to the limitations of the body, they want to be superheroes, they want to fly and jump over tall buildings, and I wholeheartedly agree with them in one way, like, hey, why not try to achieve that? That's okay, try to be your best, try to achieve. But at the same time, you also have to be a realist about what your body is doing right now. You have to be open to that communication. And the reality is your body will only be able to digest so much food per day. And there is a certain amount of building blocks that are digested from that food. And there's a certain amount of that food that can be used to rebuild tissue in a given day based on the limitations of blood flow, based on limitations of just sheer amounts. What you're doing is you're collecting physical pieces and you are putting them into muscle tissue. The physical pieces are your food, and then you're mixing them up and grinding them down, and then your body is transforming that food into muscle tissue. And of course, there is going to be a limitation in how fast that can happen, okay? So if you think that you can just create an unlimited amount of damage in the body and then just automatically recover, you're saying that there is no limitation to how much food you can digest. But try to eat more than 20,000 calories in a day and find out what happens. I mean, you will put on possibly a lot of fat tissue, or you just will hit a certain point where you just can't put in any more food. Your body just is not able to transform that into usable energy or do anything with it, right? You'll just make yourself sick. So there's just a limitation. That's all I'm saying. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that the idea of overtraining that's being perpetuated out there is necessarily true for you. Like, some people think that, oh, you just can't do 20 sets for a body part because that's too much. I mean, I've seen a lot of trainers out there talk about, don't do this on a given day, don't train this way on a given day because that's just too much volume. But that might be too much volume for them. It might be too much volume for another person, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's too much volume for the person they are talking to. It's impossible to really get an idea of what too much volume is based on talking to a person. I mean, there may be some general rules around that, but each person will have their own individual abilities and own individual makeup or constitution. And you have to work with that. So the first question is, like I said before, is your training program working? That's the first thing. Are you putting on muscle? Are you recovering? Are you putting on strength? Now, some signs of overtraining are you will be perpetually sore, or not even sore at all. You might be just burned out, where every time you go to the gym, you feel like you're not able to manifest any energy. You may have some springiness to the muscles and everything, but at the same time, you are finding that your joints and your muscles are almost chronically tight, and you may start ending up getting some joint pain or joint tightness or tightness in the tendons. Now, when you're overtraining, the best case scenario for overtraining is you just don't put on muscle tissue. A lot of people think that when you overtrain, oh, it's no big deal. I'm overtraining. I'm just not putting on muscle tissue. No risk, right? But the thing is that if you overtrain for long enough, more than that will happen. Other things will happen. Injuries like muscle tears or tweaks or massive injuries can happen because you are chronically overtraining for a long period of time. Now, don't worry. I mean, if you listen to your body, if you listen to the signs, if you start getting chronically sore in the joints, chronically sore in the tendons, and you feel like your strength's not going up, your pumps are gone, you're feeling flat and worn out when you're going to the gym, you know, if you listen to your body, then you may be able to use this period of time to take a little bit extra rest and all of a sudden blast through some plateaus. So if you listen to the body, it's kind of like breathing. I mean, I don't have to tell you through some sort of breathing program, when to breathe in and when to breathe out. And it's exactly the same thing with your training. Once you start to see the signs of when your body needs to breathe out or breathe in, then you could just make adjustments as you go about your training program. I try my best in the training programs, the 2-day split A, B, and C, and the 3-day splits and whole body workouts as well. I try my best to put things down so that I change things up to prevent this overtraining from happening. But ideally, what these programs will lead you to is increased awareness so that you are aware of how to adjust things on your own at some point, okay? So you're getting the benefit of my knowledge and my experience, but at the same time, the best way to teach somebody is teach them how to be aware. Teach them how to be aware of what's going on in their body and how to make adjustments based on that.
First, I load the bicep up, and because of the injury in this area, I have to load it up quite a bit, right?
So on the path to you growing in this awareness, you should be trying different training programs because there's no telling what training program will be the best for you. Because like I said, what will overtrain one person might undertrain you. It just depends on your body and how you're made. And it's the same sort of premise of train the muscles, not the joints. Each person will move slightly differently based on injury history, based on genetics, based on a lot of different functions in the body and a lot of things that are going on, a lot of genetic sort of factors. And it's the same thing with recovery. I've seen some guys be able to train with massive amounts of volume, and only through pushing and finding out where that point is will you start to cause the body to adapt. You don't want to push too hard, but only through pushing the boundaries will you find out where those boundaries are.
I'm gonna mess around with some isometric contractions just to play with it a bit.
So this is the thing, you will fall, you will fail, you will try things and hit overtraining and then back off and get stagnant in some training programs, and you will go back and forth, sometimes with too much intensity and too little intensity. So for a while there, I was doing whole body workouts 4 or 5 days a week, and I did start to overtrain. I found that my body was starting to fall behind in some body parts. Some body parts were responding fine, but my chest was not necessarily recovering well, and I was finding that I was not getting development. I was coming to the gym and I was a little bit too stringy, so I knew I had to back off on the frequency or the volume. And the frequency was the big factor at that time. I was just going so frequent to the gym. So I decided to back off on the frequency, and now the results are coming. My chest is coming up and my strength's coming up and it feels good.
All right, one more.
So a common mistake that people make is that they push no matter what. And I'm all about pushing. I want you to push the boundaries. I want you to put some effort out. Obviously, this is not an easy path. Any path where you want to achieve big things takes a lot of effort, you know? So you may have to be doing 2-hour workouts. You may have to do 3-hour workouts. But ultimately, it is dependent on whether this is working or not. It's always about that. Is it working or not? If it's not working, then you have to find out how to push smarter, not just push for the sake of pushing. You know what I'm saying? If you're just working out and pushing through things that aren't meant to be pushed through, you might just snap something and that kills your progress. So it's about smart lifting, it's about strategic lifting, it's about finding out what's working. So when I was finding that my body was getting a little bit stringy and a little bit overtrained from too frequently training, I could have upped my frequency and said, okay, I'm going to train twice a day, whole body workouts, one in the morning, one at night. But at the same time, would that be smarter if somehow that injured me and then I have to take 6 months off or, you know, get an injury where I can't recover from it? right? So say a muscle tear or something. So you strategically have to find out what the best way to use your effort and discipline is. You don't want to push just for the sake of pushing and push through injury, okay? So anyway, I hope this helps you out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching, and make sure you share my stuff. That's right. Yeah, you heard it. You heard it, man. I'm telling you, share my stuff.
And share my stuff.
Take care for now.